Hello, all guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Welcome to the newest episode of the Noobs and Knockouts podcast, taped live at the Twitch and available on YouTube, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Austin. I'm a knockout. Watched a lot of wrestling.
I'm David. I'm a noob. Haven't watched a lot of wrestling, and I'm your favorite bright-eyed and bushy-tailed noob who's inevitably gonna get too power-hungry and turn heel anyway.
Yes. Okay, Bayley.
Yep. Good job. You guessed it. I'm so proud of you. That my cryptic hints. He's so smart.
But do you have an injured Bae knee?
No, but it vaguely feels like I rolled my ankle the other day, so close enough.
True. So, yes, we are returning to NXT 2015, the Golden Age. Hallelujah.
Oh,
we are back for the tale of the Four Horsewomen. Last time, kind of a big plot, the biggest plot beat easily is the fact that Charlotte's NXT title reign is over.
Oh.
Sasha Banks is now the champion.
Long live the boss.
The boss is on top.
I know this has to make Austin very happy. He's a huge Sasha Banks fanboy, so I'm happy for. Literally, for the longest fucking time, his profile pic on Facebook was him with Sasha Banks at a con.
Yes, for like 5 years.
I'm still debating if I want to meet Britt Baker at Comic-Con this weekend.
Bruh.
I'm debating it because I'm not I haven't followed AEW enough to have a super strong emotional connection, but fuck, I'm a wrestling fan now. I feel like it's required.
And the doctor is pretty sweet. But back to old Sasha
anyway,
Banks, my favorite. And
yes.
and this was the era that made her my favorite. And I'm just so excited getting to relive all of this with all of you.
Oh yes.
Here on the podcast. And so she's the champion now. She won at NXT TakeOver Rival. Yeah, that's the right one. Where in a fatal four-way match against Charlotte, Bayley, and Becky Lynch. So we got the Four Horsewomen fatal four-way match. And other than that, it was a pretty short beat, so there's not a whole lot to cover. But basically, I think the two big things worth mentioning that also happened is kind of watching is first Team Bae, Sasha and Becky. They came apart as quickly as they came together.
I was enjoying the no strings attached cohesion so much, and they just had to rip it from my hands.
Yeah, they're pretty dunzos. And then, of course, Bayley is dealing with a reoccurring knee injury, and she watched a Triple H documentary and realized she's got to come back more ruthless than ever.
I know. See, I was even last time we talked, I didn't even realize the full implications of her watching a Triple H documentary. And then I watched some video after that about how after Curtain Call happened, Triple H was the one that kind of got screwed for it. Mm-hmm. And then he also came back ruthless as ever. So fuck, they really did go hard. It was shameless product placement, but it was shameless product placement that made thematic sense. So I have to applaud them for the intelligence plus serendipity, I guess.
Yeah, it kind of worked out perfectly that way. So she's still our good babyface hero, but she's also got a bit of an edge to her these days.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not happy with the fact that she turned on Charlotte. That one displeases me.
I'm cool with it. And we will see a little bit more about this in this part of this episode. This is a stacked series episode we're covering today. Too stacked, in fact. I had to cut some stuff that I wanted to I wish we could have covered, but let's so to kind of cover people what we're doing here. For the NXT episode, for this NXT arc, what we've been doing is instead of watching one episode all the way through like we do on anything else, we've been watching all the episodes, but only the women's segments. And so this is covering from the week after NXT TakeOver Rival all the way to NXT TakeOver Unstoppable. So we're covering 3 months of material from February 18th to May 20th.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not only that, we're covering 2 different storylines. So because we only have so much time to sit down and watch stuff together, I actually had to cut this down quite a bit. And I'm sad about that, but it is what it is. I feel like I've covered, we're going to hit the essential beats anyway.
Yeah, you were telling me about this yesterday, and it's kind of wild to me that, like, we're entering the era that it's getting so big that, like, we even stuff that's like highlights and importance needs to be like cut down is considered somewhat extraneous for the sake of like our expediency in our show. That's
I'll
wild.
go ahead and tell you this, is that like probably the second best match that is on this series of episodes is a Sasha Banks versus Charlotte rematch for the NXT title, and I cut it because I could not justify including it.
Shit.
Like that's what we're like. I'm going to say this is the story of 3 arcs, 1 small arc that takes place right at the beginning, and then two arcs that lead to takeover matches, because we're actually going to watch 2 matches at NXT TakeOver Unstoppable today.
Well, yeah, because we threw in that new arc.
Yes, so I'm going to go ahead and bring that back up. Is Emma has returned to NXT. She was the kind of an NXT fan favorite, doing her goofy little dancey thingy. But then she got called up to the WWE main roster. It didn't really get over. Then she had a whole ordeal where she got fired because she accidentally committed shoplifting and then was rehired. But from at that point, her career is pretty DOA. And so she was sent back down to NXT. And we're going to be exploring. And then she came back to NXT and immediately lost her first match back.
Yeah.
So, and we are going to be exploring a little bit more of her character as part of this episode today. And that's why I brought up her return last time.
Yeah. They, I know you said they get like mixed in with the horsewomen a little bit. They feel very disconnected right now. So I'm interested to see like how these 2 worlds start to meld. And I do think it's really cool that they took a disparate women's storyline and started to roll it in to kind of the history making one.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when WWE used to make like intelligent decisions when it came to NXT? Those were the days.
We're in NXT 1.0 right now.
We're in NXT 1.0. The best NXT. No cap.
Yeah.
Oh, God. But yeah, so I'm excited to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and then I guess before we kind of sign off here on this early part, I've been keeping close. We've talked a little bit about sort of like the broader women's revolution stuff as part of this arc, because a lot of why I picked this arc is because it did do a lot to kind of foster this women's revolution in WWE and seeing women in more prominent positions within the company until about 2021. Thanks, John Laurinaitis. You've done it again, sir.
Oh God.
But back to point. So I feel like I would be remiss to not talk about the Give Divas a Chance movement. So on the February 13th, 2015 episode of Monday Night Raw. So for people keeping score, it's not the 13th that's a Friday, excuse me. Well, it was an episode of TV. Sorry, I don't have my dates completely correct, but it is literally like this week of time. I know that much. There was a tag team match between Paige, Emma, and the Bella Twins that was on TV. And it was like the only women's match on the show. And it got 90 seconds.
Yeah, woof.
Which is like shit, in case you couldn't tell. Even though Emma is currently in the doghouse, been being stuck mostly doing NXT these days, Paige and the Bella Twins are 3 of the 4 top women in the entire company at this point. And they get 90 seconds on television. And so on Twitter that night was the birth of hashtag Give Divas a Chance. And if you wanted to, and it kind of blew up social media at the time. And then on top of that, even Stephanie McMahon, I don't remember what she tweeted about specifically. I think she was tweeting. Oh, she was tweeting about the wage gap as part of a larger conversation. And then AJ Lee, noted fan favorite around these parts.
Indeed.
Shot back at her and was like, what about the wage gap within WWE, Stephanie? So
yeah.
These two things both happened back to back and kind of blew up social media at the time. And in terms of WWE kind of that was a big turning point for women on the main roster. There's one other big moment I'll bring up next time, but WWE only, I feel like it's important to emphasize that WWE only changed course regarding women because that's what the fans wanted them to do. Amazingly, they listened to the fans. And I admit I'm not stupid and gonna say that part of that was also the fact that in 2015 you had Ronda Rousey was kind of at her MMA peak. 2015 was also the women's soccer World Cup time. And that definitely played a part. Not going to pretend that doesn't. That doesn't. Have the WWE kind of chasing that kind of, it's women's sports are big right now, and they're happy to jump on board. But Give Divas a Chance was a huge moment at the time, and kind of became a rallying cry to be like, we are sick and tired of the women's wrestlers being so disrespected.
Fucking good, because you mentioned this a while back as this was a push eventually, but it wasn't there at the beginning. It wasn't the horsewomen weren't spurred on by Give Divas a Chance because it came later. So the fact that we're this has been such a long time coming on this arc for us that it's so cool that we're finally at this moment of it almost feels like we're going to be able to fucking breathe a sigh of relief on this show of this era that you and I have been complaining about for fucking months on end, close to a year at this point it has to be. It just is finally coming to an end in a weird wibbly wobbly timey wimey way.
Yeah, and I was going to save this almost for the end. It's kind of like a heroic final moment, but since we're talking about it now, as you look at that, is Give Divas a Chance was February 2015, or maybe it was March 13th, 2015. That's probably what I was thinking of. Is March 2015, and March 2016, WrestleMania 32. That was the day they retired the Divas Championship and brought back the WWE Women's Championship. So literally a year.
Holy shit. Oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah, that was which by the way, also that moment at WrestleMania 32 was phenomenal. Just to get to see that moment, but that's a whole other story.
Ooh.
So that's where we're at now, is the women's revolution is a-coming. You can feel it coming. And the momentum of NXT along with Give Divas a Chance, it's all coming together.
Oh, yeah.
But for tonight, here is where we're going to go. And we are going to dive back into NXT and watch the momentum kind of keep moving until you could say that the women's revolution was unstoppable. Ba-bang!
Okay.
Get it? Because NXT TakeOver Unstoppable.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm there now.
It was very clever.
It was. I'll give it to you. Good job, buddy.
All right. If you want to watch this episode, if you want to watch all the episodes that we're watching of NXT, again, it is the February 18th to May 20th, 2015 episodes of NXT, the women's segments only, y'all. And then plus NXT TakeOver Unstoppable. You can watch all of that on Peacock. It is WWE's U.S. American streaming provider, service partner, whatever you want the word is, for $9.99 a month with ads, $9.99 a month without ads, or if you're outside the U.S., you can still get the WWE Network for $9.99 American dollary dues.
Non-American dollary dues.
Yes, the North American dollar, the United States dollary dues. And then, of course, you can NXT Takeover Unstoppable, the big match. You can find the matches on YouTube. So we'll get to that. But for now, we will be back. They're ready to talk about a whole lot of NXT leading up to and including NXT Takeover. And we are back. We have just finished a whole lot of NXT leading up to NXT Takeover Unstoppable.
Indeed. I am now doing my best cobbled together Becky Lynch cosplay now that she's debuted her new look. I got my steampunk goggles on.
Yes, unfortunately, I don't have my shutter shades that I've worn.
I know
Sasha Banks before, and I would have.
I'm so
we could have
disappointed.
done that. We could have had a bit.
I would have loved. I love me a good visual bit, dude. A nice little gaggerino. I would have been a happy boy.
Yeah. Fortunately, not meant to be.
Not tonight. But oh man, we just watched some good shit. The women's revolution is simply one of the best things we have watched on this show. Period.
Yeah, I'm having so much fun reliving this time period.
Yeah, it's got to be so wild for you. Do you find what is I feel like I've kind of asked you this before, but kind of in a more specific lens. Like, what is your experience with rewatching this now that you have the hindsight of 5-6 years of understanding the cultural significance of what this is historically and where these women go and picking up on just generally new trivia, new details? What is this rewatch experience like for you as a viewer, as an intellectual analyzer, what have you?
Oh, please don't call me that. But you know, I don't know if I necessarily come away with this with any new takes from what I came up with at the time, because my takes at the time were, oh my god, this is all so amazing. But there is something, I gush about this with David all the time, is watching these women, it kind of grow into the characters I remember them for, and not just characters, but their look and their music, and they do the moves. The moves I'm used to them doing. Like tonight, Becky started doing her step up to the rope, kick somebody, and Becky and Bayley has started doing more of her when someone's lying on the ground and she goes down and spins in a circle on top of them.
Yeah.
Or how she tightens her high pony during her big sequence, those kind of stuff. I'm like, oh my god, she started doing the thing.
Well, see, I mean that is something right there, because you pointed out while we were watching, how you've watched Bayley's moveset, rewatched Bayley's moveset develop by doing this arc. And that's something that I haven't picked up on, partially because the video glitches out and we have time, partially because I don't have the extensive knowledge you do to understand that. And again, that's why you're the knockout and I'm the noob.
Yeah, I guess.
But that I have to imagine that is an interesting experience to you saw the origins in real time, and it feels like one of those things of in the moment, it just feels like each new development is incremental and you don't kind of notice it. But now you've seen them as they are at the end of their NXT development for years now, and now you're rewinding to when they were in the developmental leagues. So once all that incremental change is taken away at once, it's got to be kind of a culture shock.
Yeah, and it's not just Bayley's moveset too. I think everyone but Charlotte has kind of, Sasha and Bayley and Becky as well. I've gotten to watch them get their moves and become more like the characters I'm used to them being. And
Charlotte's gone through some development too.
She's a little bit. Character-wise, yeah, she's probably the most static character. I think we talked about that before.
We have, and I've kind of pushed back on that, but that she feels because the thing for me is whereas you're looking at the move sets and being oh shit, this word's developed. I've pointed this out before, but I do appreciate how fluid these characters are. And with the completion of this week's set of things that we watched, it's now reached a point every single one of the horsewomen has had kind of their own special developmental highlight in some form or other. And with there's overlap, but it's each with some level of individuality. We start off with Bayley going from the unassuming noob to the ambitious title go-getter that we now see her as. And that's kind of that kind of ended with our last episode, but she was kind of the first arc that we really focused in on. And then once Bayley kind of started to move into that, then we started up with Charlotte's spotlight of her redemption arc, and we got that aspect of her. And then we had Sasha, the Mirror Master Dominator. I say that, you know, I always say the Mirror Master thing kind of facetiously, but it's also kind of legit. Like, we get to see her. Like at first she's kind of more of a plot point of turning other people heel and against Charlotte and what have you. But then she really gets to grow into her own as like the person to beat. She's the one,
the boss.
As the boss, yeah. She really comes to earn that title. She grows into truly the boss. And now we have Becky, the last horsewoman to join the ranks, the last woman to get that special spotlight. We have Becky now completely standing up, redefining herself, and asserting that officially, wholeheartedly, without a single shred of doubt, she belongs in this league just as much as the other three women she shares it with.
Yeah, I would love to go deeper into that immediately, but like that's actually a big, like, kind of her journey is a big part of this episode set. So I'm gonna get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm kind of like I'm kind of doing my thing of like going less in direct order of like what happened right now is just kind of like the broad.
Oh yeah. And I do want to say is that on a broader note is that is looking at Bayley having her like what kind of character stuff she deals with in this segment of episodes, if we're still talking like broadly how everything goes down, is while it's not as eventful as I remember it being at the time. I guess that's the benefit of that's the difference between, you know, watching week to week and everything feeling so eventful versus binge watching it all and seeing it in one strand. You can see exactly how much or how little actually happens. But her stuff with Emma is, I love that. I love the idea of it. Especially Emma as a character, and I guess part of this is also Emma was a character I also watched the journey of, where we haven't, and maybe that affects David a little bit. Is I've seen Emma's journey too, and that's why it hits. And I'm with the crowd who's just cheering for be old Emma, but watching Emma kind of descend into being this like bitter, angrier person and wanting Bayley to be the same and trying to tempt Bayley to the dark side fully. We've talked a little about like Bayley getting a little more aggressive and a little more ambitious. And I took, and look, and in that lens, I kind of took her stuff with Emma as almost like, kind of like being tempted to go the distance. It's very, very episode 6, Return of the Jedi here. With Luke getting a little angrier and aggressive and having Palpatine over here to be like, yeah, good, let the heat flow through you. Emma, I felt like a bit of a similar role here, wanting Bayley to take the next step, to go all the way with it, and Bayley being like, actually no, you know what, don't wanna.
So
it's not the clean. I will say, I finish up. It's not the cleanest executed story beat here, but I like that being what Bayley's thing to do is for this series.
Yes, I mean my kind of take here is I kind of felt like Bayley's stuff this segment was a little sloppily handled. Because and like here's why, because I did acknowledge like the Palpatine temptation to the dark side thing, and I do appreciate that, but it feels like it was done out of order a little bit. Mostly because they, like, all of a sudden don't seem to acknowledge that, like, aggressive Bayley has already happened. Like, that it happens, and they acknowledge it, like, for a few weeks. But now, like, Emma's lecturing her about, like, you can't be all smiles and hugs after she literally, like, attacked Charlotte because she got, like, the shiny in her eyes and was like, I want belt. Give me belt now. Like, it feels like they did something accidentally out of order because, like, we have seen aggressive Bayley, and then she has a match with Emma where it has, like, the temptation to the dark side, and she kind of refuses it, but we've seen Bayley go, like, aggro before, and I was trying to wrap my head around it of, like, maybe it's because, like, with Becky it was personal, and with Charlotte it's because of the shiny, but with Emma it also got personal, and Bayley didn't get as aggressive about it, so I don't... It felt sloppy to me. That was kind of my one contention here, is like something about the way Bayley's arc was handled, because of what had already happened. It felt weaker than it could have been.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily, really acknowledge where she was, more or less, where roughly she was at the end of NXT TakeOver Rival, and like we get like lip service to the idea that there was just some off-screen, reconciling between Charlotte and Bayley right before Emma inserts herself.
I guess so.
But it's not the best setup, and that's definitely the big problem with it.
Yeah.
But on paper, it's almost perfect of an idea of what to do with Emma if you're going to send her back to NXT. Actually,
I just wish that they had done the temptation of Emma before Bayley attacked Charlotte and before Bayley got personal with Becky.
Yeah, to be fair, and I don't remember, to be fair, like that kind of thing, like that's probably not something they could have planned for, because I don't remember the exact timeline of Emma being demoted due to some shoplifting shenanigans, but it totally is something that they might not necessarily have been able to plan for more as cleanly as you might want them to.
Yeah, but then they should have given Emma a different thing to do with Bayley then.
Sure.
I don't know. At least that's me. But regardless, I mean, that was kind of the one thing I thought was kind of like lackluster here, was like Bayley's arc felt done out of order, but like, sure, she's still a really good wrestler, and I still really enjoy her on a whole. So yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
So that's kind of our two major plot beats of this episode.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm gonna get into more as we go on, but that's kind of my setup for the two like broad thematic things to keep an eye on.
So let's go ahead and go on in. Technically, a lot of these first few episodes we cut out. Like that was my executive decision of like what we're gonna cut. It was mostly this early few episodes that were basically just kind of like a wrap up of what we were doing in NXT TakeOver Rival. We've seen that before, and the last two times actually, because we started the second segment of this had the Bayley Charlotte rematch, and the start of the third episode had the Christmas Day rematch between Sasha and Charlotte. So that's very much in the like, it's something they do. They like to kind of put a little bow on a bit of an epilogue to what happened on TakeOver on the main TV show before they fully move on to something else. But and there was a situation of we just didn't have time to do that this time. But it's very much the same beat. So Bayley and Becky, they give post-match interviews of TakeOver, just talking about how disappointed they are. And then Sasha beats Blue Pants in a match. But we will see Blue Pants later. We'll talk about her in a little bit. So
like I said, Blue Pants, like I said when we watched, Blue Pants had what looked to me as an accidental but might be on purpose Fault Boy cosplay or whatever from
Yeah. Fallout, yeah. So the February 25th episode is the first one where we really watch anything. Charlotte has an interview that we don't watch that is similar in tone to the Becky and Bayley ones that I just mentioned, but also has that take of I get a rematch with Charlotte of Sasha next week, and I'm going to beat her. So,
Yeah.
But then we get Becky versus Bayley. As I mentioned to David, I didn't realize that Becky had her Scarlet and Gray gear more than once.
Yes.
She has the gear again for a match with Bayley, so I was very excited about that.
Go fucking Bucks. And I mean, I was into it. Like I again, it was weird that Bayley wasn't going like as aggressive. It's personal with Becky as she was like in the past. Again, we're kind of retconning that, I guess, a little bit.
Retconning, pretending there's a real character arc here of learning to not be like that kind of a person. You know, really up to you.
Well,
how you want to read it.
But like in order for it to feel like an arc, I feel like they have to acknowledge like
which they don't.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could make the argument that Bayley sees what she could turn into and decides to reject it, but it doesn't feel like it was done particularly well if that was what was.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna mention this with the Bayley Emma stuff in a second, but I have an idea here where you could have timed this out that would have made this flow better for me.
Okay, I can roll with that.
But for the time being, what happened? Becky ends up getting the win, and thankfully, this isn't a match where they're like "fuck your knee, Bayley." This is instead a "fuck your arm, Bayley," because Becky is looking to debut her new finishing move, the Disarm Her. It's an arm bar, and she taps Bayley out and wins with the move.
So here's another observation from this that I wanted to share. Now that you've this segue into my next note is there was a lot of submission wins in this segment, lot more than usual proportionally.
I think it's mainly because I think they're trying really hard to put over, between at this point now, every single one of the horsewomen has a submission as their primary finisher, except for Bayley. Right. Yeah. So and I think that they also did that a bit intentionally to kind of set up how this ends at TakeOver Rival. I think at a certain point that it becomes like anticipation, a kind of like a setup to like what kind of match we're going to get at TakeOver.
Yeah, I can see that. I think there's also a side to it too that like now that I feel like I can say this, with more confidence than I did when I've tried to assert something like this in the past. But this does feel like it's starting to be some sort of like subtle acknowledgement of like the problems with the Divas era.
Mm-hmm.
Because a submission move is a brutality. That is you are in so much pain that you like are just begging for mercy and release. That is a clear indicator. The fact that every single one of these women, or 3 out of the 4, close enough, is going really hard at submissions all of a sudden, that's a direct indicator. This is not Divas crap anymore. Mm-hmm. These are literally strong women.
And and also from the offensive perspective of it, that's a sign of technique and skill.
Yes, that too.
They especially none of them use submission holds that are power based, that are simply I'm stronger than you. Though they do require strength. But they are technique based. The figure 4, the figure 8, the bank statement, the disarm her. They all are all about technique and talent and skill, and it requires a talent to be able to perform those maneuvers.
Yeah, well that's what's crazy about this too, is like they are really focused. Like there's this strong focus on their like mental capabilities, in ring and even kind of out of ring too. Like these are all like deeply intelligent women who know how to like use their like wits to get through situations in ring, interpersonally, to kind of like psych each other out, what have you, to turn others to your side. there's the focus on these being like deeply intelligent characters. It translates to their in-ring work insanely well. But I think that's another thing too of we're not just doing like bimbo fitness models anymore.
Mm-hmm.
These are very competent wrestlers, and it helps that they have like extremely talented wrestlers to do this with. They got some of the best in the business, whether they be indie or indie like Becky, Bayley, or deeply entrenched like Charlotte.
Becky's probably the only one of them who has a significant indie career.
True, but like Bayley was like
Sasha and Bayley have a small indie career, and Charlotte was pretty much homegrown.
But they picked up really talented people, and the best part is it starts to affect the people around them, because you look at a lot of the other divas in NXT, and they do read a lot more like the divas on Raw and SmackDown. But they start to get transformed too, like by the influence of the horsewomen around them. The big one here is Alexa Bliss is quickly evolving from jobber to actual competition. And she's on the verge of turning heel because of that. The Emma stuff is also kind of a cool indicator of that, because like Emma's side of the Bayley arc is actually compelling. Because she's clearly dealing with some shit and is trying to take it out on Bayley.
It's great.
But the fact, but their intelligence is a main factor to who they are as characters, to who they are as wrestlers, and it serves as a fantastic influence on all of their kind of colleagues.
So we get to the March 4th episode of Raw, and we get Alexa Bliss interview that we skipped. It's a lot of like, I'm coming for your title. It's redundant to some stuff she says later, so that's why we did not talk about it. But then we get the first bit between Charlotte. We have a backstage bit between Charlotte and Bayley, where tonight Charlotte will be having her match with Sasha. And Bayley's like, listen, we've had some ups and downs recently, but I'm totally supportive of you. I'm in your corner. And then here comes Emma to come speak to Bayley. And she kind of pushes back on Bayley's optimism of the situation. Like Bayley's like, also like, she comes in and originally she like does the fist bump thing that forms a heart hand that she used to do with Bayley. And they're like, oh, hey, it's good to see you again. And
like yin and yang or something.
I don't remember what they called it. And then Bayley's like, hey, Charlotte's got this match. Do you want to come sit with me and watch it? And Emma's kind of like, no thanks. And I don't know why you're so interested in it, because that match should have been yours, but you lost. And I think I forget what, she has two segments with Bayley, and they're very similar, so I don't remember which point she makes when. But it's very much, she shows parallels between Bayley and herself and what they were in NXT. And she also draws parallels between their success so far, or lack thereof, essentially. Is Emma talking about how main roster didn't go so good for her, and she talks about how Bayley, well, you're so nice and friendly, and you lost. You lost to Charlotte, and you lost it you lost in the 4-way, and right now you're not getting title shots. So why are you being so nice? What's your deal? And before I continue, actually, I'll make that point for the second bit, and then we get the Sasha Charlotte match. I mean, it goes like 15 minutes. I'm sure it was fantastic, but it doesn't really serve a narrative point to where we're going for this section of episodes. So that's why we didn't watch it and didn't talk about it. So skipping ahead, March 11th actually has no women's segments involving the horsewomen stuff, amazingly enough. So March 18th. I'm kind of excited to talk about, because this is the episode from the Arnold Classic. Up to this point, we talked about NXT as being a Full Sail only product, and it was up to this point from June 2012 when they did the rebrand all the way up to now. They had only ever been in Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida, but especially with the network, being the NXT being the premier week-to-week program on the WWE network. It was they used NXT to basically be like, hey, you guys, what if you were subscribed to us all the time, as opposed to just showing up for the pay-per-views every month? Like, that was their hook. Like any streaming service, they want you to be consistently engaged with it and with their content. WWE didn't want people to only watch 3 hours a month on the network. So their hook was, watch NXT. It's really good. I think you'll like it. And so through the network and having a bigger platform than being on fucking Hulu.com, hidden away, NXT builds this cult following to the point where now they're willing to tour with it outside of Florida, and they start doing these like full-sized arenas, and we'll talk a lot more about that next time. But they're doing these shows in like Philadelphia. They advertise on these episodes house shows in Pittsburgh and Philly and Cleveland and Columbus, as I mentioned, David, when we were watching. They advertised the June 13th show that I went to. They built a brand that they could also tour with. And the start of that touring was March 5th, 2015 Arnold Classic. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a bodybuilding expo that is in Columbus, Ohio. I didn't go to the show that they did here, probably because I was in school and had no money for that.
Yeah.
If I make some guesses as to why I didn't go to the March show at the Arnold Classic. But they have the show here in Columbus. This is our first ever NXT show outside of Full Sail University. And it looks different. Their touring set's a little bit different than what they have set up at Full Sail, and it's so cool. And through this little Arnold Classic bit, we kind of get a small miniature arc with Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks, where Alexa Bliss she has an interview talking about how so excited she is to be in Columbus, her hometown. She is legitimately from Columbus, Ohio, and how she's gonna beat Sasha tonight. She has a match with Sasha Banks. And we have the match, and like as David kind of alludes to, Alexa Bliss going hard.
Yeah.
She's come very far as a wrestler.
I think too, on my point of the intelligence kind of spreading amongst the lady wrestlers on NXT. I think too the big thing here is like what really gets highlighted, because like I'm trying to put together these arcs in my head of like, what does this all say and mean put together? Because there is no like, all of these characters are so interesting because in some ways they're all so similar, because they're all like fighting so hard and with the same kind of like, with similar levels of kind of like, gray morality. There is no like straight up face or heel in this, I think. Like at this point, like I don't see faces and heels as much. I see ambition, and I'll get more to that, but ambition I think is a key thing here. And I think that's spreading with the intelligence, as it were, of other women are attaining these great the horsewomen are attaining these great heights, and other women of the company, either in or out of kayfabe or both, are like, wait, shit, I could have that too. And so we're starting to see like it grow to like men's competition levels of competitivity, I guess. Competitiveness, whatever.
Yeah, that's the correct word.
That's the correct term. Yeah, like men's tournament levels of competitiveness, where there's a broader field and more than like 4 viable contenders for a thing.
Yeah, it does feel like, admittedly, part of that is because I intentionally included stuff that featured more women than just the four of them this time.
Well, yeah,
but it
like,
does feel like it does feel like the women's division is getting deeper than it was a couple of months ago.
well, yeah, it's not. Well, I mean, it's not like you're cheating the system here, and this is something I'm going to touch on later. But this is more of like outside women, like integrating themselves more with the horsewomen, and the women who already like were integrated with the horsewomen by jobbing for them are now becoming more than just punching bags.
Mm-hmm. But so Alexa and Sasha, like Alexa is like going hard at it. I feel bad for her though, because she tries to do an OH chant and absolutely nobody does it.
I know. How the hell do you not get an OH chant in Columbus? It's the easiest shit to do.
I feel like she just did a little too quick. Like
fair enough.
Like she just kind of does a quick OH and she's not on a mic, so that nobody can necessarily hear her, and then they just kind of move on from the mat. So like there's not enough time for the crowd to be like, oh, we're doing the thing where we spell our state.
Yeah, it's also not like super loud.
Yeah, it's not like
so fair.
But she does try. It doesn't work. But
the crowd is super receptive for her nonetheless.
Oh yeah, they're absolutely hugely into Alexa Bliss in this match.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the match goes where they're fighting on the outside, and Alexa is able to turn the tables on Sasha and knock her into the ring steps and knock her out and get back into the ring. And Alexa Bliss wins by count out, sure,
yeah,
but she still wins.
Well, and again, it's not a pin. It's not a pinfall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if it's not a submission, technique, strategy is all being introduced. This is so clearly a direct answer to, like, oh yeah, the Divas era has sucked real hard because we just, like, put no thought into it. Oops, all thought. Oh god, I'm so sorry for this pun, but almost less thought, more thought, if you will. Regardless, are you frozen? Oh no. Oh no. Austin, no. Well, gonna wait for him to come back. Hey, hey audience, how you doing? The noob is on the mic, and he feels very awkward here without his. There he is. Thank God.
Fuck.
Oh, I felt so alone.
Fuck.
You weren't like really reacting to what I was saying, so I was like,
I lost connection with you in the middle of that, right before you started to say anything.
Oh, right before I started to say anything?
Yeah, so
all
I'm
right.
gonna need you to repeat everything.
Yeah, to catch you up to speed. Yeah, no, okay. So the cool thing about this is, again, technique. There is no sure, it's not a win by pinfall, but it's a win. It's not a win by submission, but it's also not a win by pinfall. And this feels exactly like a direct answer to, oh yeah, the Divas era sucked because we treated it like an afterthought and just put absolutely no like imagination or effort into anything that the women's division did. Oops, all effort now. All the thought. If you forgive the pun, less thought and more thought. But yeah.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, finally. Yeah, gotta pop this time so you weren't freaking frozen.
I feel bad that you had to say that a second time.
Hey, I don't. I'm proud of it. Anyway, but seriously, it feels so pointed that these matches don't end with simple pinfalls most of the time in this segment. Alexa got a really smart win over Sasha. It was one that played to Alexa's strength and in some ways Sasha's weaknesses, of Sasha being so hot-headed, right? That every once in a while she can fall for little tricks that, get her into big trouble because she tried to go a little too fast, a little too hard, without considering, just because she's so cocky. She's like, oh, Alexa Bliss, easy dub. That's a squash.
No.
And she didn't take into account that maybe Alexa's been getting better. And so
not to date this podcast, but she really pulled an Alabama situation here. Alexa Bliss is Texas A&M.
Oh shit, baby!
Sasha Banks is Alabama.
The last second smart upset against the champion. I'm here for it.
Oh yeah. Anyway.
But yeah. So Alexa getting the win in her hometown is that's what's cool about it. She gets the win in her hometown. It's like, of course, we'll let the hometown hero get it. But if you think about it, it's like, wait, she's been a jobber up to this point. Alexa Bliss actually just got a dub against the women's champion of NXT of all people, and she did it by like tricking the women's champion of NXT into getting into a position where she could knock her out.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Good shit.
Yeah, and again, feels like so like I'll give WWE this, that for as much as they'll sit there and fucking spin their wheels with dumb shit, when their fans like raise a fuss about something, they will fix it, and they'll fix it in a lot of times glorious fashion. Yep,
good times. Mm-hmm. So that sets up the next episode, the March 25th episode, that Alexa. We open the show with Sasha Banks versus Alexa Bliss for the NXT Women's Title. Yep. They're back in Full Sail, and if you want to be that kind of person, you could say the home field advantage is gone, and plus Alexa can't win the same way. A count out don't get you no titles. That doesn't work. You're gonna have to pin her or submit her, I'm afraid. And it's a lot of a second verse, same as the first situation. Good stuff, but this time Sasha knows better now, and she's able to get the pinfall and beat Alexa Bliss. Though Alexa Bliss comes close as well.
Yeah.
She gets her moments that comes close.
That's the thing. Alexa loses this one, but she's not relegated back to jobber. It's like, no, the change you saw in her was not just to appease the hometown crowd.
It wasn't a
She is good now for reals.
Mm-hmm. And that definitely is important for her, because she's going to go through a whole character beat of this is, as I told David, this is kind of like the last goodbye to the cheerleader pixie character that she's been rocking this whole time, because she's about to turn heel and change, get a red aesthetic,
which is cool, because in this match she wore purple, like a little design element to show a visual transition. I love that shit. Yeah. It's so basic, but it's so effective.
I'm definitely going to bring that up later for Emma, but but for Alexa Bliss, she's now kind of an established character in her own right now,
which is
not just a character they kind of show up when they need somebody to lose.
Yeah. Who's not just one of the horsewomen, so things don't get super repetitive.
Yeah. So then we get another backstage bit with Bayley and Emma, and this is where I want to talk about how we could have structured this part a little bit better.
By all means.
So she talks to Bayley again, and she repeats a lot of her same points that are still fair, but I've already covered them. Probably the two worth mentioning is she explicitly brings up Bayley losing to Becky Lynch. And this is weird to me, because this is the second time they've talked since that match had happened. The loss she's referring to happened before Emma ever talked to her in the locker room. So I feel like if you had the first conversation, and then you have the Becky Bayley match where Bayley is noticeably no longer so aggro, in your words, and then we have this conversation again, I think that flows a whole lot better, narratively speaking.
Yeah, I could see that.
Where she's kind of like, look at me, once again being right. Mm-hmm. And as it is, like, Bayley doesn't do anything in between the two conversations from Emma, so it's weird that Emma's like, I'm going to talk to you again.
Yeah. I do appreciate, and I feel like it could have been bolstered too by that, Emma and Bayley match, like having more of a little more of like a pointed temptation, where Bayley does kind of edge a lot closer to the dark side than she ends up doing.
Yeah, that's true, and we'll talk about that in a second. As how we get to that match is Emma also is trying to make a point of like, these fans are lying to you, like, and I think, like, in a way that kind of almost like almost redeems, like we're talking about how the arc doesn't flow very well with what came before. I think the best argument you could make to say that it does still make sense is when Emma just starts making it about fans too. Because there's I think you could argue there's a pretty stark difference between Bayley kind of becoming more aggressive in her own right and Bayley's relationship with the fans being different now. Because through this whole thing, Bayley has always been on the side of the fans and has always seen the best in them and has seen their support as being essential. And Emma is coming to being like, the fans are all behind me too. And until I went to the main roster and they weren't there for me anymore. That they're lying to you and they're going to let you down too. And Bayley, and that's what also makes Bayley be like, you know what? No, we're not the same, Emma. Emma's out here being like, we're not so different, you and I. And Bayley's like, no, we are. We're not the same. Like I will not betray my fans. And eventually Emma just gets so pissed that Bayley is not listening to her that she slaps Bayley.
Yep.
And that sets up their match on April the 1st. We get this Bayley Emma match.
Which I also really quick want to say, like the thing that Emma says about the audience, that's probably the strongest point in this. And that could have maybe been where like the temptation came from, the seed of doubt came from. Of Bayley being like, just what kind of grounds her is being loved so much by the fans, being like their kind of like fave soft girl TM. And that slight seed of doubt that maybe this isn't forever might be something to like get some character beats out of her from.
Right. But that's also hard. That's hard to kind of play off of. And I think that's why they don't go harder at it. Because there's no guarantee that the fans will be with you forever. Like you can't, it's not a storyline you can just kind of keep running with until eventually the fans are like, no, we actually don't like you anymore.
Yeah. I was thinking about that, and like I'm trying to think of how you could do that. And I mean, I think there's one of two ways you could, if you wanted to, like there are one of two ways in which you could take it. Is one, you could do something where you like do not remotely bank on the fans like hating Bayley. And instead you just kind of try to have a moment in ring where like, people are cheering for her, because I mean that is pretty reliable. Like, to bank on them cheering for her is like she kind of sees it, and after that conversation she gets overwhelmed by it, and does something drastic and emotional based on that, or looks at them and is like, no, you wouldn't. I'm deciding to trust you and, stay the course. Or you could, have her in a moment of aggravation and aggression, do something extremely heelish, so much so that like it's almost inevitable the fans would turn on her, and then her taking any negative reaction she gets from that and being oh shit proof.
Right.
But I don't think. But I mean, the one problem with that is I don't think we want to run like a Bayley full heel turn. I don't think NXT at this point had the space to run a full Bayley heel turn arc. So like,
NXT had no interest in Bayley turning heel at all. So that kind of limits part of how you could play this out.
Yeah. I know we're harping a lot on this arc. I just the rest of it is so good that like it makes me want to like nitpick the smaller things. Like, how could have this been like perfect?
I agree. And we get April 1st, Bayley and Emma, and we're not always the greatest executed. I agree with David. You could have probably made it a little more like she could have seemed a little more tempted. But from Emma's perspective, I loved everything she was doing in this match.
Oh yeah,
Emma's side of it was amazing.
It's so compelling.
In this match, it's very much it feels like Bayley wants to still be friends with Emma. And I think that's important for how this develops later. And so she's kind of playing this, I would almost say similar to her match with Alexa Bliss a little several months back. That we called on as being like a literal bestie frenzies, kind of having a fun match together situation. And Bayley's more hesitant here, but it feels like Bayley wants this to be a friendly match.
Yeah.
And Emma doesn't. She spends most of the match trying to goad Bayley into being more aggressive, into really fighting her, to kind of leaning in.
Yeah.
And Bayley just doesn't want to do it.
Well, like the Bayley the like Bayley's gonna hug you mentality here. There is there is that kind of tension of is something gonna happen because Emma's so obstinate against like Bayley's friendship toward her. But I do like the aspect of it that this is Emma like making her own damage Bayley's problem. That's the part.
Yeah,
of
like if we want to talk about Emma's side of this is a whole lot of Emma projecting. Like, if we want to
pretty much
simplify this aspect, is she failed on the main roster for any kayfabe reason you want to invent for that.
Yeah,
and she is projecting her own failures and shortcomings onto someone else that she sees as on the same path as her.
This is where we see like the word of the week, and in some ways the word of the era here is intelligence, because what makes her side of this work is like acknowledging an out of kayfabe reality and mixing it back into kayfabe. That's when kayfabe is always at its strongest, because it helps blur the line enough to like really keep the audience invested.
Right.
Because both halves of their braids are being engaged here.
Yeah.
But the tension comes from, not just like, Bayley trying to be friendly and Emma being, but the fact that we know in the back of our heads that Emma is technically right, and that adds legitimacy to what she's saying. That adds like a legitimacy that maybe makes it feel like, oh shit, maybe Bayley will like come to agree with what she says, and it just generally like immerses you in the world of like an actual kind of emotional stakes here.
Yeah, definitely. But Bayley gets the win anyway, and Emma is sad, and and almost significantly, Bayley doesn't try to hug Emma, and that she doesn't attack Emma either. She just leaves
her alone.
Rip. And after that, we get a Becky interview talking where the interview's like, you asked for this time, Becky. So you're right. I did ask for this time. She is sick of this shit. Everyone's getting a title match but her, essentially. She's like, Bayley getting her match. She had her match, and Charlotte had her match. Even Alexa Bliss, the bloody beauty of NXT, got her match.
Still not sure if that was an adjective or an exclamation.
And she wants her title match because she knows she can beat Sasha, and she brings up some reoccurring phrases she'll use talking about this is her empire, and it's time for N-Bex-T. I'm so excited that pun master Becky Lynch has arrived.
That's an actual thing for her, as she like starts making puns.
Babyface Becky Lynch is basically defined by how much she likes puns.
Son of a bitch.
And steampunk, but we'll get to that bit in a second.
Hey, I'm already prepared for that part, but those puns, nuh-uh. Please, God, no.
I love them. Sorry. The April 8th episode of NXT features no women at all, because it is entirely based on around a WrestleMania 31. Excuse Jesus Christ. WrestleMania 31 tournament to have one of the NXT male wrestlers appear on WrestleMania.
We can't have any wombs on WrestleMania.
Yeah, not yet. So we get around to that. The April 15th episode, we get the debut of Dana Brooke. She was first hyped as being a woman who a former fitness competitor. She was part of the Arnold Classic this year, and now she's signed to NXT. She is a big, strong woman, and she will flex her biceps a lot. And she takes on Blue Pants.
Yep.
who in her Fallout boycott and her Fallout boy. Holy shit!
God, oh man, you're having a David moment over here.
Having a day right here. Her Fallout cosplay.
Anyway,
Continue.
Honestly, I'm pulling for Blue Pants here. Blue Pants seems charming. I love funny wrestlers who will lean into how funny and goofy they are. Her theme song is just a dude humming shittily, and it's hilarious.
It is.
I legitimately thought it was one of the announcers humming at first, like
no
the theme song that was gonna be turned on. But no, that was just her theme song. It's so good.
It's pretty fun. But Dana, she is strong, and she crushed poor Blue Pants. And we'll hear more from Dana next week. Mm-hmm. So the April 22nd episode of NXT, we get an interview from old Dana Brooke, kind of introducing her character. She is the total diva.
Yep.
And I made fun of her. I made fun of some of the things she says and does in the interview. Like she talks about how this isn't a debut, it's a birth. And I was like, I don't know. That's kind of like a debut if you think about it. It's kind of the same thing.
Semantics.
And then she also goes on how she's like the big, how she's the prettiest and the bestest in NXT. And at one point she talks about how she's definitely the strongest. And she flexes her arm that is next to the microphone. So Devin Taylor, the interviewer, has to move the microphone so that she can show off the bicep. And I'm like, why don't you just flex your other arm?
It's a power move. Duh. She's asserting dominance.
That's true. She loves to do that with Devin Taylor.
She's so mean to Devin Taylor.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary.
So she's like, so she stakes her claim, and then she ends all her interviews with Devin Taylor by giving her an old pat on the head.
As you do.
I gotta say, I loved it because I love that kind of passive aggression. Anyway, so on this episode, we get a big time match, a number one contenders match between Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Bayley. So the other horsewomen that aren't the champion. To go down, and I think it's a fun match. They do a lot of cool, creative 3-person spots.
Oh my god, yeah, all of them combined.
I
mean, it's cool to see. Because we've seen a couple 4-ways between them in different forms. It makes it really interesting to take one of them out of the formula and see like what happens. Because that's what this is, right? It's Sasha's not here, so what is life like without the boss, basically? And it's very hard for me to articulate what exactly is different because, as much as I pride myself in my analysis skills, I'm still pretty weak overall on like my ability to put technicality to words in ring. But it definitely feels like something's missing, and it definitely feels like something's shaken up, but like both in a good way. Maybe you can speak more to kind of like what the difference here is.
I mean, Sasha fits a very specific role in these matches with him of being the aggressor and the instigator. That's her role within this group of people anyway. And so the match has almost a friendlier quality to it, especially because Becky Lynch is turning babyface. So it's kind of a nice physical match, but it's also not one that's too aggressive overall. Like it feels like everyone's just trying to win.
Yeah,
no one's
so.
playing dirty.
They're not angry at the moment. That's I think okay, I see that now. I mean I guess it's more of a character thing, but like Sasha's fighting has an angry quality to it. Becky's does too, but in a different way. Sasha is at the same time full of panache and easily frustrated. Whereas Becky kind of has this baseline desperate energy to her that she kind of harnesses throughout. It's more steady than kind of Sasha's whiplash between style and force. So I think what we have here is a match of constants, and I don't say that in a bad way. I like the stability here, because it's a strong show, that has a good kind of like rotational quality to it. Each one kind of gets their chance to be on top as
Yeah. And the ending sequence is insane. It goes, Bayley hits Becky with the belly to Bayley. Becky's basically dead the rest of the match, essentially. But then here comes Charlotte to apply the figure 8 to Bayley, and she gets it in. And then Becky is crawling over to Bayley, barely even conscious. And she just sticks one arm over Bayley. 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Charlotte is still holding on to the submission, but Becky gets the pin and the win.
Which, oh my god, I just noticed this. I was talking about all the intelligence and technique and like how submission is used an indicator of that. Here that's subverted with the pinfall, but again, the pinfall done in a clever way, like taking advantage of a situation to get the traditional win.
Yep.
That's really clever. It's a subversion of how like traditional the pinfall is here. In that we've got a pin that's taking advantage of somebody else's technique, and it's your own kind of like tricky bullshit to kind of steal that away.
Yeah, like, and Charlotte had no way to stop it. Because of the figure 8 position, I don't know if we've ever really talked about this, but like
the
figure 8, she arches herself back almost like spider walk style. So she isn't looking at Bayley, and so she can't see what Becky is doing. Exactly. All she can hear is the ref going 1, 2, 3.
And that's the thing, is like it takes an understanding of other people's technique too, not just your own strategy. It takes an understanding of other people's strategy and technique too. Which Becky, as her star continues to rise as kind of the protagonist of this week's arc, gets the chance to demonstrate that she can play with the big dogs because she understands how they operate.
Yeah,
among other things, among like her talent growing.
Yes. So Becky gets the win, and now she is the #1 contender, and she will face Sasha at NXT TakeOver Unstoppable. So we get backstage, we get a confrontation between the former Team Bae, and it goes very much like how you think it probably goes. Sasha's like, okay, you think you're going to beat me? And Becky's like, I'm a big deal.
Yeah.
I made me. And Sasha's like, no, I made you, and I'm the boss, and I'm the champ, so I'm going to win.
I'm Sasha. I'm the boss.
I'm the boss. So April 29th, 2015. So Becky gives a pre-taped interview that kind of touches on the same point she's made in the last 2 interview segments we talked about. So that's why I skipped it. Then we get a Bayley interview where she has to prepare for her match against Dana Brooke, but none of her stuff. She is missing some of her gear. She's missing her t-shirt. She's missing her headbands, and she's kind of freaking out about it. And as she leaves to go to her match, Emma pops on into frame wearing all of Bayley's shit.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, Bayley needs this now. I guess I'll go give them to her. Okay. Bye-bye.
Later.
So now we get Dana Brooke versus Bayley. And it's a fine match. If I had to make some critique, I would like Bayley to have been felt a little more distracted and out of it mentally than she was. Like, they pay lip service to this being an issue with her, that like she doesn't have her headband, she doesn't have her gear, she doesn't know who took it. She's kind of freaked out, but it doesn't play out very much that way. But I like the idea of it as an explanation for why, spoiler, Dana Brooke wins and beats Bayley. And to further add to that point, Emma shows up late at the end of the match in wearing Bayley's stuff. Bayley's music plays. The Bayley buddies, the inflatable tube men, they all pop up, and Bayley's just like, "What the?" And
it does have a bit of an eerie quality to it, but again, the name of the game with Bayley this time around, unfortunately, is lost potential, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And again, that's not to like say that it's abjectly bad. It's just, God, my standards here are so high that I don't need to I don't feel like I have to settle here like I do in other places with wrestling and with this company in particular. I can have expectations and like make more nitpicky critiques where they pop up.
Yeah, I agree. But Dana is able to hit Bayley with her move. I don't know what her finisher's called. She gets it and pins Bayley, and it's like, whoa, Dana Brooke just showed up and pinned Bayley. That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and commentary does make kind of a cool comment about the pressure Bayley's feeling about like being in the ring with a total newbie. And again, even if there's some waste potential here, it does help keep that tension on of like where Bayley stands as like one of the top dogs here, because she's the like kind of least proven top dog at this point. And
the last thing she needs is to lose to a newbie and continue to justify her place.
Yeah, it does kind of create the story of what'll happen if Bayley can't prove herself like in time, whatever in time it is.
Right.
So so that engagement is still there in the back of my mind. I just wish there was more done with it, but it's there, and I appreciate that it's there.
Yeah. So after and a meaningful moment of as Dana Brooke is going up the ramp, she high fives Emma, and it can almost lead you to wonder if there was some collusion, if this was involved between them. It wasn't just Emma trying to fuck with Bayley; it was also Emma trying to help Dana Brooke specifically. But that's all speculative, because they don't necessarily call that out, but it feels like it could be true. But who could say? Who can say? In the meantime, we cut a backstage bit because it doesn't add a whole lot, but to say Bayley is backstage, just kind of running around frantic, looking for Emma, looking to get her stuff back. And it's kind of a moment that kind of solidifies that the Bayley, whatever friendship Bayley and Emma had, isn't really there anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
and her friendship with Charlotte is like once again rejuvenating. So it's kind of feels like the my friendship with Emma has ended. Charlotte is my new best.
Charlotte, my new best friend. Yes.
Yeah.
And then Becky got a squash match against Sarah Dobson as kind of a way that we didn't watch, as a way to kind of just put her over some more, as like she's the number one contender.
Yep. Don't you forget it.
Yep. So. At some point in here, and I seem to have accidentally deleted when this happened, but this definitely happened at some point, is that Sasha Banks had an interview that we didn't watch where she was like, Fabulous Moolah is the greatest diva of all time until me. And like, fuck the Fabulous Moolah, so always down for that. But it added nothing, so I didn't include it.
Yeah.
Moving on. The May 6th episode, we kind of start off with Charlotte versus Emma. And significantly, Emma comes out to her music this time, but she's also still wearing all of Bayley's shit. So
yeah.
Bayley did not successfully get her possessions back. Unfortunately. Obviously, we get some funny bits of Emma healing on the crowd, and like, because we haven't talked about it, but when Bayley makes her entrance now, she always has like slap bracelets.
Yeah.
Put on fans, and she has her headbands to give to people. And Emma teases she's going to do that, but then obviously she doesn't. She's an asshole.
Yeah. It's so, yeah. What, alt mirror universe Bayley, right?
Yeah. So Charlotte and Emma, they have a good match. I think this is a big key for Emma as a heel now, because god damn, she was trying to destroy Charlotte's knee.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's like trying to like eat each other's body parts like individually.
Yeah, I would say it left more of an impression, but then we get the takeover match to talk about that. But Emma went hard at Charlotte in a way she hasn't before, and unfortunately she still doesn't win. And I felt bad that she just loses again. And that's kind of the end of that. But then Bayley arrives at the end of the match. After the match is over, Charlotte's even leaving, and she's like, "Hey," and it's almost like, "Hey, I got some business to take care of. What's up?" And so we get the fake out hug. She's like, "Okay, bring it in." Of course, Emma's like, "Oh my god, yay!" Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so glad we could be friends again. And then Bayley doesn't let go in the hug. She hits the Bayley to belly, and she's putting the boots to Emma. And that's when Charlotte comes back to almost be like, hey, calm down. What? It's over. And then eventually she literally tears her shirt off of Emma and throws it into the crowd. And at that point, Bayley's like, I'm done. Okay, we're good. So it almost feels like Charlotte is once again trying to protect Bayley from the worst of herself, but in a different way than last time. The first time was almost Bayley's recklessness and trying to get on the same reason, actually, trying to avoid her getting herself in a situation of revenge, but for different motivations of, looking back when she was trying to get back at Sasha and Becky, it was all about revenge for my knee.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't beat them 2-on-1. Don't try. You're just going to hurt yourself more. And this time it's almost, she's saving Bayley from the worst, personality of herself. She's protecting Bayley's heart, you might say, if you wanted to get flowery and Kingdom Heartsian.
Yeah. No.
She's trying to stop Bayley from kind of almost slinking to Emma's level of attacking Emma.
Yeah, no, she's acknowledged that Bayley's gonna Bayley and get impulsive. I think at this point she's acknowledged that. I think I'd like to think that at this point Charlotte's not gonna get in the way of Bayley getting herself into legitimate matches. Because Charlotte's like, all right, she's becoming a big girl. She can figure this out for herself. But she is trying to be that stalwart mentor figure still. Of I need to rein you in a little bit and remind you of who you are, and not your place, but who you need to be if you want to hang on to this status that you kind of have right now.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And I have a note on that. My last few notes are all going to be stacked up for the last match with apologies.
Yeah. And so we get a Becky sit-down interview that hits her origin story.
Yeah.
Where we kind of get to hear about how she started wrestling at 15, very true. And she was successful all over the globe. She was the youngest foreigner to ever wrestle in Japan. I don't know what company she wrestled for, I'm afraid. She won championships in Europe and America. She was great. They don't explicitly talk about this time. They only casually kind of mention it, but she basically retired very young due to injuries. Yeah. And they don't make the explicit connection, but it's pretty much a situation where if she wasn't brought into WWE, she would probably have never come back to begin with. Yeah. And she talks about how she's had adversity and toughness. And to David's credit, and I'm glad he appreciated it as much as I did, but they talk about her coming into NXT and doing the river dancing shit. And the way she explains it, she phrases it as she sold herself out. Yeah. She wasn't true to herself. And you can it's one of those kayfabe blurry ideas, and it implies that she let herself play a stereotype and not be herself because she thought that's what she had to do to succeed, and it failed.
Yeah, the offense that people are taking over the Irish stereotype thing is always a little weird. But on a broad level, playing into that stereotype, playing this cheery, happy-go-lucky, whatever, when that's, when her personality is a little more punk and gritty. Yeah. That on a broad level, feels again, great way to mix in kayfabe with the real world, because there is something to having to play against your own personality, playing a character that's not yourself. So it's kind of that acknowledgement of that. And again, for a minute, it kind of bounces around in your head as feeling really real. And for a moment, I'm like, "Fuck, Becky, don't let them boss you around like that." I'm like, wait, it's kayfabe. But it does make you question, fuck, does this have some truth to it? What?
Yeah. Yeah, how did she fall into the Irish step dancing shtick?
Yeah, and why did she get out of it?
Yeah, but it basically is she's now true to her. She's learned to be true to herself and that's how she's going to be become the champion, going to bring in N-Bex-T. All that is all very fun stuff. And then we get the contract signing.
Yep.
Between Becky and Sasha. And it starts well enough. Becky kind of reiterates a lot of her points she made in the pre-taped interview video, but she also brings up like literal real world side gigs she took after she retired from wrestling. She talked about, getting work as a stunt woman, doing work as an airplane attendant, as a flight attendant, trying to fall into whatever just to make ends meet. And it does add this as we are turning Becky back babyface, but now not as an Irish river dancer. We're bringing in this very real element of her backstory and her personality, and it's working really well, and it's really coming great. And I think that kind of portraying her as kind of this scrappy underdog character fits very well with Sasha as the boss, who is, if nothing else, ostentatious and gaudy.
Well,
she comes out for this segment, and it's hilarious. She brings her own giant ass stamp, personalized stamp to sign the contract with.
It's so good. Well, but this is what I'm starting to mean by I don't see baby faces and heels among the horsewomen. I see 4 women of ambition. And that's the thing for me. And because what really got me to notice it was Becky. Because, I didn't articulate it explicitly in the way you just did, but there was something in the back of my head that was acknowledging, I am feeling, warmer and more sympathetic to Becky, but there's not an explicit face turn here. Because a lot of times face turns will be either there's, such an, objectively undeniably positive and enthusiastic audience response that they just start leaning into the fact that they're popular with the audience, or they have a come to Jesus moment. Neither of those have really happened here yet with Becky, but we see a side of her that's ambitious and aggressive, like we've been seeing from her in her headbanger persona, but not in a malicious way. And it kind of gets this idea into your head of maybe none of these women are wholly malicious, because they've all had similar conversations with each other and with others about do you really want this? You have to be kind of ruthless to get it.
I don't know. Sasha might be malicious herself.
I don't entirely know. It manifests in some maliciousness, sure, but even she is starting to back off of I'm evil shenanigans. There's kind of a sympathy that if you see it in one of them, you kind of start to see it in all of them, because they have these shared traits. And if you sympathize with it in one of them, and the others aren't literally murdering puppies to get the championship, you can kind of start to sympathize it with them with that in them too. And Becky's kind of where I started to first notice that here with that video package of hers. And then with the contract signing, is it's not the super explicit, obvious face turn, but it's ambition. The ambition to be something greater. Again, great response to the Divas era as it kind of starts to make its way out because of fan reaction to it.
And I will say is that you talking about there's not being an explicit face turn it is interesting to me that she's clearly being portrayed as a baby face, and at least someone you should cheer for in this situation. And yet they not only perfectly acknowledge her history with Sasha, in the video package, the turning point is explicitly shown to be the mirror conversation. And yet they don't deny her past with Sasha, and she also doesn't try to apologize for it. As you might expect a babyface turn to do. So that's interesting to me that it does work like that, is making her a sympathetic character without necessarily trying to forgive or forget her past as when she was more blatantly heelish.
Yeah. And that probably helps too in her being a little more sympathetic face gray area-ish, is that they're not playing up yeah, I got with Sasha and I beat down on those losers. again, I don't think any of them are like totally pure characters. All of them have kind of gone a little underhanded to hurt each other, or at least like had an undesirable element to them. You know, Charlotte's the lawful whatever, you know, whatever morality alignment you want. But she has been like, you know, needlessly kind of cruel and cold at points. And that's kind of her version of it. But all of them are kind of coming to this same level of we all want the same thing, and we all acknowledge we have to fight each other for it. And sometimes we're gonna have to, you know, put personal feelings aside and even kind of be mad at each other and take it out on each other in ring. I don't feel like the morality play isn't there as much in this, but I don't say that as a bad thing because I like what it is instead. And it's a story of ambition, a story of wanting to ascend to greater heights, and it's very symbolic of the era we're in. And Becky's where I really started to notice that. This contract signing is where I really start to notice that. Because here, you know, Sasha attacks her, and she's still kind of the most blatantly heelish. But what happens is, you know, Charlotte, you know, or not Charlotte, Sasha gets mad, you know, in the middle of the signing, and she attacks Bayley, or Becky. Fuck, she attacks Becky.
Get the whole matchup wrong.
Yeah. Attacks Becky, flips the table. Obviously, not before she puts her very ostentatious, I'm sure very glittery stamp on the contract. You love to see it.
Sasha with the absolutely amazing visual of she knocks Becky's head into the table, and then she gets on top of the table and just kind of like holds Becky's head down into the table while she's posing with the title belt. Like I was like, that was pretty sick.
My only regret is that the stamp isn't the ring. But regardless, but Becky fights back and actually gets the upper hand and gets Sasha to basically tap out. So again, it's not like, oh, look at the sweet little innocent baby face attack. No, Becky's on the same damn playing field as her and isn't afraid to push back and fucking stand up for herself. Because she wants this just as much as Sasha does and is willing to get pissed about it as much as Sasha does. And, you know, fight her outside of official ring match. Enough. And again, so even if Sasha's the aggressor here, it's not like, oh, pity and sympathize the baby face. No, watch these two hot-headed bitches go at it, and it's awesome.
And they're gonna kick so much ass, but in a couple of weeks. But
yeah,
first,
exactly.
We get the Dana Brooke interview number 2, where she starts a feud with Charlotte Flair whole cloth.
Yep.
Over the fact that Charlotte Flair is part of WWE's Tap Out commercials. That is their workout gear line. And so the commercials are all a bunch of WWE superstars in tap out gear doing workout stuff. And Charlotte's in it, and Dana is offended that Charlotte's in the commercial and not her.
Yep.
So she's like, I'm gonna kick her ass next time I see her. And she taps Devin on the head and goes on her way. The May 13th, the last NXT before TakeOver, Sasha Banks wins a squash match over Casey Cassidy. We did not watch it because it is a squash match.
Yep.
And then we get an interview between Bayley and Charlotte, and it basically is like, you got a beef with Dana, I got a beef with Emma. We're friends. Let's tag team at TakeOver.
Yeah, pretty
like,
much.
All right.
Would you like to form an alliance with me? Yes. Ooh. Good. Yeah.
Good. And then later in the night, we get a response interview where Dana and Emma are like, "Yeah, okay, you're on."
Yeah, pretty much.
Best part is they walk away, and then Dana's like, "Oh, one
he
more
back,
thing,"
Pat,
and then Pat pats Devin.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to NXT TakeOver.
Yes.
Unstoppable. First, we get Charlotte and Bayley versus Emma and Dana Brooke. I thought it was a perfectly serviceable tag team match.
It was really fun. These are the 2 points, because again, my whole thing tonight has been taking the individual matches as being like themes. But kind of the 2 things that I wanted to bring up here was, one, this is where I really, really want to touch on having people outside of the horsewomen's circle be like major players in this. This is like the full acknowledgement of the like importance of the horsewomen, right? This is kind of the strongest implicit acknowledgement of it. Like we kind of got that first with William Regal being present for the signing and saying straight out like everyone's been talking about how important these women are to the advancement of our company, you know, some to that effect. And hearing like NXT general manager like verbally acknowledge that is huge, as like he's hip to the internet phenomena now of what they become in the fan phenomena, and he's willing to lean into that and play into it, you know, because it gets ratings and shit, but because they also are like really good and they're willing to give them the time that they deserve on air. But the fact that then you have people outside of them like really becoming part of their story is the strongest implicit acknowledgement of just how important and influential they are. Because these are the women to be with, these are the women to beat. And they're not just cordoned off in their own little like 5 to 10 minute segment of NXT. They are now systemic to NXT. And sure, it's staying like mostly within women. Like I'm sure we don't get like KO like coming out and having a whole lot of time on stage with Bayley or whatever. But
well, wouldn't that be the wildest ass?
God, I know.
Pairing. And now I want to see. Now I'm mad they never tried. They never were like, what if Bayley and Kevin Owens cross paths?
I need more co-ed wrestling. Anyway, but regardless, right? It's systemic because we've seen that these women do have connections to the men's division, the women outside of the horsewomen. So there is like it's all starting to become connected. They're not a disjointed like, oh, the ladies are over here, whatever. No, this is integrated. This is acknowledged. This is important enough that it's going to like be more spider webby in terms of how the arc is structured. And I think that's stronger than, you know, even any William Regal announcement you can throw out there. At least in my opinion, I was a huge fan of. I really like the integration and bolstering of other women via the horsewomen, because again, it just shows how far we've come. And the other thing too, like we've talked a lot on this show about kind of the story and technical structure of tag team matches and specifically tag team partnerships, and how it's kind of tropey to be like, you know, can they coexist TM, or watch that cohesion TM, and we've had a bit of a back and forth of that with Charlotte and Bayley. I think what's cool here though is this is where I'll give like the Bayley arc credit. The kind of they it's still like annoying that they kind of retcon things how they did or didn't acknowledge things in the way they didn't. But I'll give them this. They found a way to like you know, take the restart point they started at and still kind of end up making it fulfilling with a little bit what had happened before. Because what I noticed is, you know, I had talked before about like the first time Bayley and Charlotte tag team, it's cool that they don't have can they coexist TM, and they're both kind of just getting along and there's not a whole lot of bitchiness. And the second time is when we get like more discord between the two of them, and that's when Bayley ends up attacking Charlotte because she's like, ooh, shiny. No, fuck you. And now we're back to straight up friendship and there's not problems. And I was thinking about like what made this feel remarkable to me, and I realized there was a distinct difference that you could in retrospect chalk up to maybe the cohesion I attributed to their first tag match together still wasn't quite as strong as it could have been, because the one missing component to that is Charlotte and Bayley we're still in that case very much their own separate people. Now, not to encourage codependence among tag team partners. No,
that's not good.
We've seen how that plays into disaster in the past. But they're still very much two distinct people who just happen to like get along and are able to fitfully coexist. But what's cool here is now they've kind of intermingled their personalities a little bit. Bayley has definitely adopted more Charlotte to her of like, willing to be cold and ruthless a little bit to get what she wants. And, finding the strength to stand up for herself, like, like Charlotte has always had. But what's really cool, what really struck me was for the first time, and this is what I think is solidifying the friendship and the Charlotte being an effective, steady mentor to Bayley, is Charlotte meets Bayley on her level for the first time ever. Charlotte's doing high fives with Bayley. She's getting in on Bayley's shtick.
She accepted a hug on the ramp.
She accepted a hug on the ramp. She and Bayley can finally like, be together without problem because they're finally willing to not only understand each other and cooperate with each other, but to see and emulate the best in each other. And that was the coolest part of the see. And the best part is Charlotte was kind of Charlotte's kind of the bookend to this, being the established like star that she is, genetically superior daughter of Ric Flair. She kind of gets she kind of gets to bookend this, right? She starts off like her arc. I talked about her. She's kind of like the second arc of like her redemption arc a little bit, but in some ways it's dragged out from very front to very back. Of like at the very beginning of this, Charlotte was the first ruthless one, the first one to turn cold, the first one to be like, to win in this business, you gotta look out for number one above all else. And then at the end of this, she's still Charlotte. She's not selling out or not turning into some like, sunshine and lollipops, whatever. But
she's letting those walls down.
She's letting those walls down. She's willing to look at somebody she respects and say, not only do I see you, but I respect you to the point of, not of feeling as though we are truly on the same level. Your shtick, Bayley, doesn't feel below me. It feels not only on my level, but it feels appropriate and acceptable and enjoyable for me to engage in.
And what a difference a year literally makes.
Yup.
Because we started all of this with Charlotte making it very clear that Bayley needs to grow up. That she needs to get past this silly, childish shit. And
Bayley does grow up on her own terms.
And Charlotte acknowledges that and gets in on Bayley's stuff too. Oh my gosh.
Yup.
This is a story of friendship that has been a year in the making, and we've watched the whole thing.
Fuck, that's so cool. Yeah, no, I mean that's what it is Charlotte doesn't look down on this anymore. This is Bayley's own version of maturity, and Charlotte can finally understand and acknowledge that. And that's what allows her to get in on it. It's so striking. Yep. It's such an amazing, heartwarming image to see. And again, God, the unique ability of this medium to tell emotional stories like this in this. Like wrestling is so unique. I don't even know how to describe it. Because like on one hand, it sounds like yeah, that's just fucking how TV shows work. But this is different. Like because of the like half reality show aspect to it, and because of the like the constant fluidity that being like a fighting show, the constant momentum that being a fighting show like affords you, you get to watch like you get to watch it in this very unique format where half of the storytelling is done wordlessly and through physicality above all else, the physicality of fighting, the physicality of this in-ring dance. And that's the thing is like ultimately it's not Charlotte coming up to Bayley and saying, "Hey, you've grown up, but in your own way. We're cool now." It's the physicality of her high-fiving to
her doing Bayley's shtick.
Yep. This is the magic of wrestling, is just the long-term storytelling it affords you and the very visceral way in which it can be enacted.
Yep.
It's magical.
Obviously, Charlotte and Bayley win. This wasn't going to go any other way.
Of course.
And as he said, it's a fun match, which I honestly don't even have any real notes to talk about it, I'm afraid. Unfortunately, it is all overshadowed in my mind by our main event.
Oh my god.
Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks for the NXT Women's title. First of all, let's go ahead and open this up. The steampunk gear. We've been an hour and a half building up to this, talking about this.
Gotta put the goggles back on.
Headbanger.
Gotta practice
Becky,
when I break the Wally cosplay out this weekend.
Headbanger Becky Lynch is gone, and Becky in her truest form, you might say, is here. Her steampunk shtick. And she is here, and here comes Sasha, and oh my god, what a match.
It's really incredible. The momentum is one of those. It's one of those matches that it's one of those matches that does a really strong build, and by the end it's so like boom 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 back and forth push and pull that you're just exhausted and exhilarated by the end of it all.
Yep. And first, I will say that this is the payoff to all of this technical wrestling that we've been
absolutely
leading up to, because this is a fuck your arm match.
Yep.
Because it starts with Sasha deciding that Becky's arm is just not going to exist anymore. And my God, the things Sasha Banks was willing to do to Becky Lynch's arm.
Yeah. Somewhere Pentagon Jr.'s master is like weeping an inexplicable like single tear of joy.
This would have been happening simultaneously with Lucha Underground, actually.
Oh my god, yes.
Holy 2015 was a good fucking year for
wrestling.
wrestling.
Headcanon accepted. Sasha serves the same master as Pentagon Jr.
Yes. So she like will do her knee drop. We've talked about her knee drop thing where she hangs them up on the second rope and knees them directly in the gut. She did that to Becky, but only to her arm. Directly in the arm. And she's just doing these complicated submission maneuvers to just kind of twist and bend an arm. The worst part that is still disgusting.
Oh, God.
She has Becky's arm trapped. One of Becky's arms trapped under her. She grabs Becky's other arm and just starts twisting. And she twists, it's going for the full hyper extension. She's twisting it down and down and down. And eventually she takes her her foot and just pushes the arm down even further. Determined to snap an arm right then and there. It's absolutely, I remember watching it the first time she did that live and thinking that was the most disgusting move I've ever seen in my life.
These two women's ability to take the shoots that they do in this match is insane to me. I don't know how the fuck you could like take that and like be willing to keep fighting afterwards.
Yep.
IRL and for real. Holy shit.
And then, to Becky's credit, Becky fights back. And then she gets the arm attacking offense going. She starts doing her moves to attack Sasha. I talked about the knee thing. Becky has the bit where she loves doing these leg drops.
Yep.
And she was leg dropping Sasha on the arm.
Yep.
Instead of on the chest as you normally would. And they both women to their I don't talk a lot about selling because I'm not good at talking about that granular talking about wrestling, but like absolutely phenomenal job by both women to sell the fact that their arms were injured and to let it feel like they actually were limited in what they could accomplish, limited by their their bodies were limited by what the punishment they had taken to their arms. Just an absolutely insane moment near the end of the match where Sasha Banks goes for a dive to the outside and Becky almost catches her. The idea is supposed to be that Becky catches her, but it's almost botched because they both fall over. But then Becky just lifts Sasha up, for both of them up at the same time. Like as she's lifting herself up, she also has hold of Sasha. And then she slams Sasha back first into the ring steps.
Yeah.
Absolutely brutal stuff. And it's like, I feel like I can't do this match justice of how like brutal and intense and just awe-inspiring it was to watch this match. And I'll go ahead and tell it ends. It ends. Becky is making her comeback. She's up on the top rope, and Sasha manages to jump up the top rope, grab Becky arm first, drag her back down, and then puts her in the bank statement for the tap out win. So Sasha retains the title.
Yeah, it's incredible. I figured Sasha wasn't gonna get Becky. I figured Becky wasn't gonna get the dub here solely because like there's no way they would make Sasha do that quick of a turnover. To make any of the horsewomen a transitionary belt holder just feels wrong. So like, but it was so long and brutal. You illustrated it all so beautifully there. It was fucking evocative. I did forget that. Like in the moment of like this is one of those times like I knew the outcome like intellectually, but head went empty because of all the pretty fighting. And God, I did believe in Becky's like second win there. And when Sasha got the drop on her at the very end, I was like, oh yeah, shit, duh. But it did catch me off guard because they both put so much into it. And I think too, this is the culmination of what I've been talking about this whole episode, kind of the dead horse I've been beating. Becky versus Sasha is long and brutal, and this feels like the culmination of hashtag give divas a chance finally having happened. The company taking a look at, oh shit, we've been kind of mishandling this whole thing this whole time.
The divas are being given a chance here, right now.
Yeah. So it kind of culminates with this like now legendary match. It's long, it's brutal. Both of them take some horrible shoot bumps, and both of them put in tremendous work to overcome like this pain that they're put through, and drive each other to the absolute brink. And it's just like almost, at least in kayfabe, a toss up at the very end of fuck. It's whoever just happens to kind of get in the best vantage point at the right time. Because at the end of the match, both of them are just lying on their backs, utterly, throttled physically. And this is the antithesis to everything, every single goddamn thing the Divas era was, all rolled into one. Strong, intimidating, ambitious female wrestlers with complex personalities, with long, emotionally investing storylines, fighting each other to the brink of physical devastation, just to get that sweet, sweet gold. It's unlike anything that the company had seen with women's wrestling in a long time. And what's cool is at the very end of the match, Sasha gets the dub, she retains, she walks off with the belt, but Bayley stays there, and Bayley looks, or not Bayley,
Becky.
Fuck, I keep doing that. God damn it. Becky stays there, and Becky looks kind of crushed. And this probably is its own form of bait, but in some ways, without prompting, the audience starts chanting for her and singing the like intro to her theme song. And again, probably her staying like in ring is probably its own form of bait. I don't know.
It encourages the audience to do something like that, like to start chanting things like "Thank you," insert name here, or start doing that. But the audience still has to bite.
They still have to bite, and Becky, and by extension all of the horsewomen, earned the hell out of that bite. I mean, this was kind of like Becky's episode above all else. So like, she's the one that gets to like earn that bite directly. But the fact the audience does bite, and the fact that they are so supportive of Becky for the loss, or after her loss, is like, this is like the perfect encapsulation of how far we've come in this year for women's wrestling in NXT and in WWE as a whole. We started off with it kind of taking everyone by surprise that these women were as good as they were. They kind of were building up, kind of figuring themselves out, whatever. But we have now come to a point where it's not only expected but actively looked forward to, actively expanded within the scope of NXT. It's going to spread to WWE very, very soon, relative to how long the Divas era has been going on. And the audience has responded. They have looked upon the women's division and smiled. And the fact that they did all of that basically of their own accord, aside from the unspoken bait, just shows like that we've reached that triumph point that you and I have been waiting for so long in this era. We're finally here, and it feels triumphant beyond words.
Mm-hmm. I will, before I kind of wrap up with my own thoughts, I do want to a very cool little detail of when Sasha won the match, she's still holding her injured arm, and the ref tries to lift her arm and she's like, "No, I can't do it. Lift the other one," and she has to adjust the title belt on her shoulder so that the ref can lift her arm, even in victory. She is selling how damaging this match was for her as she escaped with that title. But anyway, my final thoughts is it's kind of like it's hard for me to not look at this era thinking back the way I was thinking it in 2015, and to at least hard for me not remember this. And it's like this whole time period, it felt like every single takeover I was telling myself, I didn't know that I could see a women's match this good. And especially poor little me, having only ever watched WWE and Divas Wrestling. Obviously I'm not stupid. I wouldn't think that like women are just completely incapable of good wrestling. But, this is the kind of thing I just didn't ever think I could see in WWE. It's what I wanted to see. I remember the YouTube comment sections and the Game Facts forums very well, 2013, begging for this to get this kind of a platform. And even still, my mind was blown by all of the matches we've come to watch in this section, from Bayley and Charlotte and Sasha, to the Fatal 4-Way, to Becky and Sasha. And I kind of want to I have a different thing I want to talk about for the last match of this arc. So I want to kind of wrap up this part talking about getting to watch in real time. It was absolutely mind-blowing to see how good women's wrestling could get in WWE. Looking back at it now, knowing where it goes, but also being able to appreciate it all in one clump together has kind of been, I've kind of gotten to see some of how damn good these arcs all fucking were.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just we let women be good wrestlers, though they also did that.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing characters were being constructed from this over the past year's worth of wrestling that we've watched for this arc. And we still have like 3 months left to kind of add on one story beat to go, I think. But, I just want to say that, and I will definitely say it again next time, I'm so glad I chose to do this, to put this together on this arc. I've been glad to share this with you. I'm glad I got to relive all this. And, oh my God, next month when we finish this arc, I'm so excited to be back to a certain particular point in time. But that is the end that's for then. For next week, what we are going to do is we are going to return to 1987. It is time for one more episode of Primetime Wrestling, as Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant is set. Hulk Hogan, noted douchebag, except it's barely kayfabe acknowledged that he is, but he totally is. Bobby Heenan was right. It was Bobby Heenan. r/Bobby Heenan did nothing wrong. That's the new subreddit right there. And but what we have is tonight we had a contract signing. Let's get one more next week. Always fun for some drama. That is for next time. For now, David, hit our plugs.
Yes, sir. Alrighty. My friends, my dear, dear, wonderful friends, thank you all so much for joining us on yet another episode of the Noobs and Knockouts podcast. We are so happy to have all of you here. If you are a returning listener, viewer, what have you, thank you ever so much for joining us here. We hope you've had a good time. We hope you continue to have a good time and, keep joining us week after week. If you are brand new here, my friends, welcome, welcome, welcome to the podcast. We are so happy that you have decided to join us, to allow us into your eardrums and eyeballs, whatever. And if you would like to continue to join us and you're not entirely sure how to do so, well, not to worry, I have you covered. First of all, you can find us on YouTube. We are the Noobs and Knockouts podcast on YouTube. You find our channel, you hit subscribe, you ring that bell, you make sure it turns a nice solid color so you get notifications every single time we drop a new episode. And you can just check us out like that. Watch our videos. More recently, we've been putting our beautiful, sweet, sexy faces on our YouTube channel, so you can actually look at us while we talk. You can see epic visual gags like my steampunk goggles. Feel free to like, comment, add us to your playlists. Check out our playlists. All of our arcs on our YouTube channel are organized into their own individual playlists. Austin is kind enough to do that for us. So if you want to follow a specific arc all the way down, you can check those out to do so. Just anything on the old tube to give us that sweet engagement that we love so much. You can also find us in audio-only format on 3 of the best places to find your podcast, and that would be Spotify, Apple, and Google. Check us out on whatever platform of those you like. Download us, rate us, whatever the fuck else you do to give us those wonderful numbers and tell the algorithm these dudes are pretty cool. Maybe some more people should check them out. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. So be sure to check us out on all of those wherever you like to get your podcasts, visually or audibly, whatever. We are also
audibly.
Well, that's a audible. So
audible is a different thing.
Regardless, we were also on social media. Our big one, of course, is our Twitter. You can find us on Twitter at Noobs and Knox Pod. That's Noobs, the letter N, Knox Pod. I'm pointing to it right here. Austin is too, if you're looking at us on the YouTube. Be sure to check us out there. We love to tweet things out, some dank memes, engage with wrestling discourse. We tweet every single time we drop a new episode to let all of you know what's going down. And of course, Austin, as the big highlight of our Twitter channel, live tweets his weekly wrestling watching experience. My friend, what is on the docket coming up?
Yes, of course. As always, we will be live tweeting AEW Dynamite, the one wrestling show I consistently watch live every single week. Unfortunately, right now AEW is being preempted by damn you Major League Baseball playoffs, and so this upcoming week, Saturday the 23rd, will be on Saturday night, just like the October 16th episode was. And I'll be honest, don't know if I'll even watch those episodes of Dynamite because I like college football. Sorry. But normally it is on every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on TNT. So that's normally where that AEW Dynamite is. That's when you're going to want to watch. In addition, we also live tweet AEW, WWE, and Impact Wrestling pay-per-views. First up is the WWE's next pay-per-view event, Crown Jewel, coming up October 21st. We will not be live tweeting that one for 2 reasons. Number one, because it is taking place in the middle of the day. And the reason it is taking place in the middle of the day is because it is live from Saudi Arabia. These is part of a series of shows that WWE is being paid for by the Saudi Arabian government to do. This is definitely not the podcast to talk about all the political implications of such a thing and why I don't morally support that. But suffice to say, not going to watch Crown Jewel. However, in the Impact Wrestling upcoming will be October 23rd's Bound for Glory It is one of their biggest, if not their biggest, show of the year. And we expect to see wrestlers from AAA, from AEW, from New Japan Pro Wrestling, all over the world. It's going to be a fun time. Impact is always a pretty good show. You can get that for $40 on Fight if you are so inclined, from Fight TV or traditional pay-per-view outlets. In addition, AEW's next pay-per-view is Full Gear, November 13th. That is $50 from Fight TV or on traditional pay-per-view. And probably the biggest highlight from that one is that my boy, Hangman Adam Page, the anxious millennial cowboy, there is like a 99% chance he's going to win the fucking world title. And so he has this whole amazing arc. It's the best long-term storytelling in AEW right now. And oh my God, please win, Hangman.
Does anyone want to cash at me $50 so I can buy it with that while still being frugal? Please, God, I want to see Hangman beat Kenny Omega so bad.
Yes. To our viewers, I understand it is a lot of money to ask for for wrestling that you might not necessarily like. I will not explicitly support piracy. So I will not, but I understand the concerns. I truly do. I will say that I have never bought any of the Impact or AEW's pay-per-views and felt that they were not worth the money. That is the best I can really say to you. I understand that's a steep money pit to drop for something you've never seen before. You might not necessarily have ever seen before. But that is what is upcoming on our Twitter. For
absolutely
live stuff.
So be sure to check all of that out. Austin's live tweeting is awesome. He's very insightful, very funny, and I speak from experience when I say he's just generally a cool guy to spend your time with while watching wrestling. So whether in person, or in person, quote unquote, or digitally, it's a great time. He's great company for that. So be sure to check that. Out. Pardon me. We also have an email address that you can contact us at. Man, my words are not working tonight. If you want to get in more direct contact with us at the show, you can hit us up at Noobs and Knockouts Pod at gmail.com. That's noobs, the word and this time, knockouts pod at gmail.com. Come say hi to us. Tell us what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show, what you want to see more of, less of, suggestions for arcs, seasons, individual episodes, just generally saying how delightful and wonderful our dulcet tones that come out of our vocal cords are week after week after week. We love to hear it all. Come say hi to us. We'd love to say hi back. We just love hearing from people. And finally, you can also find us on Patreon. We are also the Noobs and Knockouts podcast on Patreon. $1 a month gets you early access to episodes and a shout out at the end of each episode.
See y'all next time.
Hasta luego.